Welcome to Big Homeopathy. I'm your host, Sarah Thompson. Hi, welcome to Big Homeopathy. I'm your host, Big Homeopath, Sarah Thompson. You can't be a 30-year player in a day under 30 years. Someone told me that when I was learning to play the banjo and frustrated with my progress. It was on my mind recently because I watched the documentary of Alex Honnold's climb of El Capitan, free solo. And I didn't know anything about climbing. I'm not a climber. And so I really enjoyed this insight into the world of this level of climbing. I had no idea what kind of preparation was involved. And before Alex made the attempt without ropes, he climbed that route 60 or 70 times in a harness. And I read some interviews with him afterwards, and he said that he had done another climb, a free climb somewhere else in Yosemite that he had not prepared for as well. And he almost fell. And he said when he made it to the top, he did not feel satisfied because he had been lucky. And he said, I don't want to be a lucky climber. I want to be a good climber. What a beautiful statement about mastery. You cannot be a 30-year player in a day under 30 years. So like all responsible homeopaths, I attend seminars and watch lectures and observe the case-taking of master homeopaths. And I had an aha moment when I was taking a class with Isaac Golden, where I realized that these highly accomplished homeopaths, they have the ability to identify the crux of the case in the consult and to retain the curiosity and openness and lack of prejudice that can allow them to elicit the symptoms and determine the etiology of the important aspect of this case without fixating and becoming prejudiced. They are capable of zooming in and out into this very precise and then very diffuse space that I heard Jerry Cantor talk about in an interview. And when I think about what gets in the way of preparation for mastery, I think of the term monkey mind. You're probably all familiar with that term and its connotation, in which our scattered stream of consciousness interferes with our ability to concentrate. And if Alex Honnold fails to maintain his focus, he can fall to his death. If I fail to maintain my focus, I can miss what's important in a case that can help me be directed to the remedy that will relieve a patient's suffering. And when I think about my own martial arts training, I know that the gift of awareness is the ability to be in a relaxed focus so that you can respond appropriately and to bring that beginner's mind every time. It's actually really something we have to cultivate. And so with that in mind, I thought that today we could talk about some promising research about ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. I don't even know how to make sense of that picture. But in the moment when I was watching it, even though there was some anxiety, it just felt so natural for him to be up on that crazy wall without any ropes. Anyway, the study that I want to talk about today was published in 2013. I have to read the title to you. In the Indian Journal of Research in Homeopathy, and it's called Homeopathic Management of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, a randomized placebo-controlled pilot study. And the study was small, and I'm not a research scientist. It is a dream of mine to someday be able to finance research in homeopathy, and I hope that when that time comes that these brave and heroic thinkers will have been able to achieve what Thomas Kuhn called the scientific revolution in reorganizing the way that research is done so that we can appropriately evaluate energetic medicine in the human organism. And because really it's all energetic. And I think that's really a problem right now, is that allopathy has kind of failed to grapple with that, at least officially, that it's all an energetic in the body. You can't isolate any of these things. But I digress. Let me find you the details here. So the study enrolled 61 patients. I think it ended up being that it was 54 who completed it. 30 received individualized homeopathic treatment and 30 received placebo for a year. They were all cared for by homeopaths, which really allowed the study to control for the dynamic of the medicine, which was all Q potencies. And they were able to change the medicines over time if that was necessary. The outcomes were measured using the Conners Parent Rating Scale, the Clinical Global Impression Severity Scale, and the Clinical Global Impression Improvement Scale. And all those details are in the study, which is linked. And this is a really helpful study because it's actually really a resource. They list the 9 remedies, I think it was, that were used: calcareous carb, lycopodium, phosphorus, hyoscyamus, sulfur, belladonna, argentum nitricum, and natrum muriaticum and pulsatilla, and also the indications why those remedies were chosen. So it's very useful. And I do recommend that you read it. I'll pop the results up here, but briefly, using benchmarks for oppositional behavior, cognition problems, hyperactivity, academic performance, and the ADHD measurements we discussed earlier, there was significant improvement of 1.6 points overall on the Conners indices, that's a 1 to 7 scale, so that's significant. And remember that the negative numbers mean improvement, and then with the academic performance, you see that 14.4% improvement, which is pretty impressive. But there was this other cool thing, which was that the study was contrasted internally with another study that had not shown results with homeopathy. And that study was only an 18-week study. The practitioners were restricted in how often they could change the medicines. They were restricted in their dosing, dry dose, long wait. And there were other medications involved, and that really highlights wonderfully these issues that come up for us as homeopaths. The first is time. Allopathy has really been part of this culture of immediacy that patients now also expect, and it's our job to help them understand this different pace of the process and to see their results when they're happening, because they don't always see that. And we have to manage that, and that makes these times a little different than maybe when the Organon was written. Another aspect of that is the rigid posology, and that and I think that's the fifth edition prescribing, that the obstacles to cure and the maintaining causes, which Hahnemann recognized were so much of an issue. In order to successfully navigate our cases, we have to have the flexibility to recognize that those things are happening and to adjust accordingly. And then, of course, the energetic interference of another medicine. It brings us back to what we were talking about with this, that all medicines are energetic in the body, whether they're considered energetic medicine or not. And so then that is just setting up the studies to fail and setting up homeopaths to fail. Which brings us back to the very beginning of avoiding catastrophic failure and achieving mastery. And one of the things that using with careful preparation and thoughtful study. And Alex Honnold said in an interview that he really dislikes this idea of people trying to hack mastery, that you cannot be a 30-year player in a day under 30 years. And I know that I sometimes use the term hacking the quality of life, and I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek, because obviously when we give a proper remedy, the vital force of the patient is that cascade starts the response. And they're the ones that do the work, and it is often a lot of work. And it's our job to hold those hands and be along for the ride. And it's not always easy, but it's always rewarding. And that's the nature of being big. Big homeopathy is going to be huge. I'll see you next week.